you never know what you get. It's chaotic precision. If you don't know, you better find out. The Dad Pack are here to prove a point. We three kings just believe that you don't want to tussle with them. This show is thunder. Subscribe and tune in, and you're laughing to the very end. Don't turn your back on the Dad Pack. Don't turn your back on the Dad Pack.
Put the kids to bed. Dad's home. We are the DWO podcast, representing the Dad World Order. I am the handsome head of household, Mr. Magnificent Mike Martin. And with me, as always, the rest of this patriarch pack. We got the big bad bearded daddy. He is Big Rig Eric Maffey.
Honk if you hear me, baby. Let's go.
Oh, yeah. And he is the perpetual mid-carder and the two-time world record holder. He is the wrestling t-shirt guy, Bo Cephas.
Cowabunga indeed. This show is pre-recorded, so my shirt date isn't going to match up with anybody watching this on Thursday, but it is currently day 964 consecutively wearing a wrestling shirt.
Heck yeah, man. Awesome. You're getting there. You're almost to 1,000, man.
Almost to 1,000.
Almost to 1,000. Well, as Mr. Magnificent said, we are the DWO podcast, and tonight we have with us a very special guest. This man doesn't need a super long introduction. Absolute legend in this business, Mr. Steve Keirn. Sir, how the heck are you?
I'm blessed, man. I'm blessed. I appreciate it. Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for coming on, man.
Man,
that was the hard part, right?
Yeah.
Trying to get through all that. I gotta say, man, there's quite when it comes to professional wrestling trainers or people that have worked behind the scenes, we've been very blessed to have some really good people on here. We've had the late, great Kevin Sullivan on here. We've had Cody Hawk on here. We've had a couple other trainers, Al Snow. But, man, I got to think you might be up there at the very tip top of that. You have touched so many hands in this business. It's an honor to have you here, man.
Well, I appreciate that. But, here's the real truth about that. I mean, and I tell this to people all the time. I mean, I'd love to claim everybody. I mean, I'd like to say, yeah, I did that. But reality is this. It took me a long time to learn how to teach my industry because I had to retard myself back to the very beginning, which was a long way. But my first student was Tracy Smothers, and Stan and I were teaming up in Tennessee territory. Jarrett let me use his arena there and train guys because I could foresee that I wasn't going to be wrestling all my life. I needed something that I could do from this business that I had some kind of like background in. I mean, I went to high school with Hogan, Mike Graham, Dick Slater, Austin Idol. I think that's it. But anyway, we weren't the brightest guys in the world. I mean, so, and I'm not saying I'm an idiot, but when you're starting to teach people, the idea is when you say, okay, well, that guy taught me. I rubbed off on a lot of people and I gave a lot of input, but it could have gone in one ear and out the other ear. You know what I mean? So I have some favorites that were students that still I communicate with because if they show a different kind of respect. They'll call me and just ask me, how am I doing? I mean, they won't call me and go, oh, hey, coach, I lost my job. Where am I going to go? Well, go get another job. But, I touched a lot of lives, but one-on-one, totally by myself, nobody else, that's very few. And it's at the beginning because when I first started teaching, I just wrestled guys. I'd have them come, show up, say, okay, I'm gonna teach you how to have a match, and I'm just gonna take you through spots. And I would limit them to, dangerous spots, but at the same time, limit them to things that were simple, but you could have a match. Because reality is when I learned to wrestle here in Florida, it was a whole different era. It was serious kayfabe. I mean, you know, it was like, if you smartened anybody up, you were going to die. Or if you did anything like heels ride with babyface, you're fired. You're out of this territory. Eddie Graham was strict. I mean, like really strict. And so you got to take into consideration, I went through 4 generations. So from the first generation that I broke in with, that training did not work 3 or 4 generations later, because now they're already going over their matches for 4 or 5 hours at TV, and they're going out there and they're just going by spots, and they're going spot 1, spot 2, spot 3. The difference between territorial days and the more the advanced WWE, WCW, I mean, you know, AEW, whatever, is we wrestled the same city 52 times a year. Yeah. When I worked Tampa territory right here where I live, I mean, I was in Monday night, West Palm, Tampa Tuesday, Wednesday, Miami, Thursday, Jacksonville. Friday was either Fort Lauderdale or Tallahassee, and Saturday was the circumference of this Tampa area, about 60 miles, and Bradenton, Sarasota, St. Pete, whatever it was, and then Sunday was Orlando. These guys, they don't do that. And you had to be different, because guess what? Fans didn't have a montage of stuff to choose from. They were focused on wrestling. There was only 3 television stations. And so now with all of that changing, and, you know, I had to adapt, and I had to teach the way the business was currently. I didn't have to teach, you know, oh, well, wait a minute. Let me teach you old school, okay? That's not going to do you a whole lot of good now, because there's not a whole lot of guys that are left that would understand what you were doing in a match that you didn't go over it, where you just said, hey, listen, I'll see you out there. We got 15 minutes and you're going over. I'll see you out there when we get out there. They go, what? Right. How am I going to do that moonsault off the top and, you know, about 3 people catch me? Well, we don't do that. We didn't do that back then. So I like to take credit for, you know, a huge number, but I'm honest. I mean, you know, I influenced some. Some probably didn't even like me at all and would just sit there. And when I would critique their matches, that's one of the things I did. We'd have live events, and the next day we had film. And to me, the best way to learn is watch yourself. Watch yourself. Would you buy a ticket to see that guy?
Sure.
I wouldn't, but now I'm going to tell you why. And then just give them some kind of input like that. You know, I'll give you an example of somebody that I really love, and I just saw him the other day, and I think he's unemployed right now, but Jake Hager, who was Jack Swagger.
Yeah.
Yep.
When I filmed him one time, I filmed him from his neck to his knees. I never picked up his face. I never picked up his feet. And I filmed him in about a 10-minute match in a really sleazy bar. It was called Bourbon Street in Newport Richie, but FCW. I filmed him. And when we watched the film back the next day, he says to me, he goes, hey, coach, how come you're not picking up my facial expressions? I said, watch the match. And he watched the whole thing, and he says, I don't get it. I said, did you see what I was filming? And he goes, no. I said, I was filming that stupid outfit you're wearing. You got a singlet on from Oklahoma. Who gives a shit about Oklahoma? I said, you're up from college. You're not in college no more. This is not the Olympics. You're a stud, man. You're a big 2-time All-American, you know, about 80 feet tall and, you know, 250 natural weight. I said, you go out there in that singlet and you look like a goof. And I said, so I just wanted to film the singlet. And, of course, to this day, he always says, you know, oh, Mr. Keirn was stiff. He kept trying to get me out of that. And even I watch him and I would see him, and he'd ask me during his years of the 2 industry, I mean, the 2 giants, WWE and AEW. And he said, what do you think? I said, man, who does your costuming? I said, you know what? When I saw myself and I thought I looked stupid, I got somebody else to pick something out for me.
Right.
I said, you know, so anyway, but I appreciate the acknowledgement of teaching so many people, but it's kind of like I just spread myself really thin, but I had a focus, and this is what my focus was. So I'll tell you the whole thing was I would run live events here in Florida. When they turned the whole developmental over me, shut down OVW, shut down Deep South, and John Laurinaitis says, it's all yours. Run it the way you want it. It's in your name, your liability. You're the CEO, you're the owner, so it's all yours. So that means if somebody sues somebody, they're going to sue me. And he's going, that's exactly right. Oh, I got sued 5 times, and it was by never mind. Anyway, so that's, you know, when I designed it, I designed it after a territory back in my day. And I ran the state of Florida. I know you're probably not as familiar with it, but the state of Florida, the border is water all the way around, right? Yeah. Except for at the top half up by Georgia and Alabama. Anyway, with that being said, most of the things that come here, like concerts, pro teams, I mean, big sporting events, I mean, no telling what it is. They're in the major cities like Miami, Tampa, Orlando, Jacksonville. I mean, you know, so I stayed away from those. And in the center of the state, there's smaller, less large towns, and I knew every one of them. And I'd take them there, and we'd run armories, and we'd just kind of, but to me, the only way to learn the wrestling business is get in there and wrestle. You can be in a gym every day for the rest of your life, and I could teach you every move in the wrestling business because I know 1,002. Malenko, what is Malenko? 1,001? I know 1,002 moves, but you're not going to use them. I mean, you know, the very last time I went to over to NXT, they sent me over there, and a guy that I did find, I found him at a First Watch breakfast place. When he come walking in, I freaked out. He was like 80 feet tall, right? And it was can't think Omar. I don't know what they call him in WWE.
Omos.
Omos, that's it. Well, his name is Jordan. And he was a basketball player at USF. And when he come in, he sat down right beside me, and I was working then, so I had an actual business card. So I says, "Hey, what do you do?" And he says, "I'm a basketball player from Nigeria." And I go, "Are you any good?" And he says, "I'm fair." And I go, "This is my card. You want to make some money? I don't usually do this because I'm a person that doesn't know who's really going to make it. Right. But if you want to make some money, call me or call this number." Anyway, so it was 6 months or so. And then he's boom, there he is in NXT. And when they sent me over there to train him, guess what? They wanted me to teach him. You're not going to guess. Let's just kill that part. They wanted me to teach him a drop toe hold. I go, how many times do you think this guy is going to use a drop toe hold? Oh, man, he needs to know everything. I said, well, I appreciate you guys paying me and bringing me over here for a week. But if I'm going to teach somebody something, this is not what I really thought. I said, well, you know what? Why am I even arguing? I'm getting paid. That's part of the business. You just do what you're told. I'm a soldier. So I said, okay, come here. I'm going to teach you how to drop toe hold. This is the damnest thing I ever did. And it took me half the day. And I'm going like, wow. So
good mess.
I didn't mean to keep you all transferred off of any kind of questions or anything. But
Steve,
sometimes I get started.
Man. This is conversational. We have no real direction other than we just want to talk about, your career with you. I've got to say, though, before we move on from Omos, he is probably the best giant guy ever, man. I mean, when
And
you
he,
talk about an insane level
yeah,
huge person and being as nimble as he is, it's insane. He reminds me of the when Big Show used to drop them drop kicks in WCW. He has an athleticism that is just not matched for people that size. So I see what you when you found him, how you were just kind of like, wow, like
well, to be, I didn't know he was nimble. I can tell you, I just saw him walk in a restaurant. You know what I'm saying? And then I really didn't nimble him loose either after he got there. I mean, nobody. I taught Norman Smiley, who's still with NXT. I taught Norman Smiley how to teach, because some guys would come to me that would be assigned to work FCW, but they never taught anybody. And they may have been the greatest workers in the world, but it's a whole different game when you're trying to tell somebody how to do it, opposed to getting in there and showing how good you are. But the one thing that I taught Norman, and if you ever have Norman Smiley on, please ask him one question. Just say, what does Steve Keirn teach you? Because it's going to be the first thing he's going to say. He said, don't let them touch you. Don't let them touch you. They don't know what they're doing. They're learning. Does a football coach get down against the lineman on a pro team and go, let me see what you got?
That's true. That is
it.
very true. I never even thought of it like that. Yeah.
Oh, no. But see, that's what I learned about teaching. When I was teaching Tracy Smothers, I wrestled Tracy Smothers. And he was a young country boy at the time from Franklin, Tennessee. And he was, I think, partly shooter, amateur in high school or something. And so, I mean, he was stiff, but he was such a nice kid that, if I even indicated that he even hurt me the slightest, he was all apologetic. But still, you're playing Russian roulette. Do y'all know the most misused phrase in the wrestling business?
I'm sorry.
That's it. That's it. Perfect.
Yes, sir.
That's all they can say. All they can say is, I'm sorry. I used to do a thing when I worked the Indies, when I was doing Doink in a match and Skinner in a match. I was really multifaceted then, boy. On the Indies, I'd do that. And anyway, I'd say, here's the deal. We're going to go out there tonight. And I know your family's here. So I'm going to make you look unbelievable. And I said, what would you like to do? And they give me a long list of, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to do this. And I try to be very sweet and nice and respectful. I go, okay, well, if any of those don't come up, I'm sorry, but I'll try to get as much of it in as I can. But the one thing I want you to know is the number one rule with me is I'm going to give you a 2 apology rule. And what's that? Well, you apologize to me twice while we're out there. The third one's going to be mine, because I'm going to do something to light you up and bring you back into reality.
Right.
This is my livelihood, and you're not like the greatest, but I'm going to do my best. So anyway, my 2 apology rule.
That's awesome. I might have to take that going forward. I gotta ask, man, he's probably my greatest favorite of the last, maybe 10, 15 years. Can you tell us any cool story about when meeting Wyndham Rotunda and did you see that level of creativity in him from the start, or did he take some growth?
Well, background is Mike and I were roommates when I was doing Skinner.
Okay.
Yeah.
There was 3 of us, me, Mike, and Randy Savage. We were really tight, and we traveled together.
That's awesome.
Listen, I'm adding stuff to your story, but I can't resist. We traveled together, and we were like the guys that would stay in a crappy hotel. If I rented a car, I'd rent a car just big enough for us to get in. I mean, and then I say, we don't need a Lincoln. We can get there in this Toyota. But then when we'd sleep, we'd flip every night for the bed. There was always 2 double beds, and we'd flip. And I lost every night. And Randy couldn't figure this out. But it would end up Mike got a bed because he's a shooter. He can have that bed over there.
Yeah.
Now, me and Randy are going to flip. And when we flip, the loser has to sleep on the floor, but he gets the mattress. The winner wins the box springs. I was on the floor every night.
Yeah.
Randy go, you lose. I go, yeah, I know. I gotta sleep on the damn floor again. Anyway, so Mike and I are friends for a long time. Wyndham and Taylor would come on the road. A lot of times in the early 90s, we'd bring a family member with us. Like I took my son to California and the Road Warriors, or I guess they were Legion of Doom. Then they had a kid. I think it was Animal had a kid. Ted DiBiase had his 2 boys. I mean, everybody brought their kids. Like, bring your kid to a school day.
Right.
Anyway, and so I knew them way back then. But with the Rotundos, because that I'm so close with Barry, Blackjack, Kendall, and then Stephanie, Mike Rotundo's wife, then I'm into that family so deep that when they showed up, my wife would bring Christmas cards that we got from them over the years, and I'd bring them in and show them to the talent, I'd say, hey, look at Bo over here. Look at Wyndham. And they got mad at me one time because I had one that they had turtleneck sweaters on. And it wasn't Wyndham that said it. It was Taylor. But Taylor goes, oh, Mr. Kirk, don't show anybody that. We hated them turtleneck sweaters. We were so mad at our mom that year. So yes, I knew him. The answer to the question is that I identify anything exceptional to his creativity, his character ability, his actual physical in the ring? No. I saw more in Taylor, and this is being straightforward. As a guy watching, Taylor looked better. He had long, pretty hair. He looked like, kind of the movie star look. I mean, and he was a badass. He had actually headbutted some kid in high school when we were on the road one time. But he almost got expelled out of Brooksville High School. Mike was freaking out. But so he's a tough kid. But Wyndham held himself back until we started doing in-house promos, and Dusty started feeding them some cool stuff, and then they started getting creative. But I couldn't sit and watch promos all day long, so I missed a lot of that part of him coming out of him. I saw him on the live events and everything, and he was still holding himself back, exactly like Roman Reigns. When Roman Reigns showed up, knowing here's another second-generation wrestler, whole deal, when he walked in, I saw money immediately. I don't know if this guy's got any creativity. I don't know if he can wrestle. I don't know if he can even stick his thumb in his ass, but it don't matter. He looks like a movie star.
Right.
I mean, and plus the family tie, which is very important in my business. There's a lot of times that, if you're related to somebody, you might suck, but you're going to play and get money. And then, so there's been a few opportunities like that. But Wyndham really got better and better and better and better. But they got in trouble with me a couple of times for not putting out street signs for the live event. They dumped them in a dumpster, and I called them into the office, right? And I sat them down and said, the guys are in the principal's office now. I said, because they're barely out of high school, these guys. So I said, you know what I'm going to do? I said, I'm not going to threaten you because I found out you dumped my signs and you didn't put them out. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up the phone and call your dad.
Oh.
And they're going, you should have seen them. They both had a round mouth like they were blowing a bubble at the same time. They looked at me and they're going, and that was the only way I could describe it. But it was the funniest thing. It was like two kids. They didn't have no fear of me at all. I mean, that's zero. But when I mentioned Dad, and they knew how close him and I are, Then all I said in there going like, oh no, please, anything but that, Mr. Keirn, don't call
Right.
him that, but that. Ah! Anyway,
I'm telling.
yeah.
That's perfect for we're a dad-centered show, so we love those kinds of stories.
Yeah.
I had a lot of second generation wrestlers in there, and all of them were peers of mine, their dads. I mean, I had Barry Darso's son, Dakota Darso. I had Ricky Steamboat's son. I had Charlotte Flair. I mean, you know, there was an endless list of second generation wrestlers. Jerry Briscoe's son, Wes Briscoe. So there was a bunch of them that come through. The hardest part for me, and one of the reasons I kind of burned out and was starting to try to fade and say, I gotta get out of the business. This is starting to kill me, was because that my business was no longer fun anymore. I'm teaching, but I'm seeing broken hearts. I'm seeing people that don't make it. Everybody now, they're seeing witnessing stars and all of these people up there. They're, you know, I used to say, I'm gonna make you all millionaires, and they would all laugh at me, and they all way past millionaires now. But I saw that, but then I got phone calls like, they just cut me. I don't even know why they cut me. They just said we're ending your contract, and I go, you know, that's the hardest part about the business. But if you really have a passion for my business, then you're going to continue. You're just going to find another street to play on. I said, you know, there's Puerto Rico, there's Japan, there's, you know, there's territories, there's AEW, there's TNA, there's AABB, DC, whatever the hell there is.
I mean,
you
there's
know,
this. You're looking
Yeah.
at three guys who wanted to be wrestlers, but our life choices took us in different ways. I mean, Steve, I've got the Intercontinental Championship tattooed on my belly to
that's
win
not
the
a real.
that's the real
I don't
tattoo.
think that it's upside down. Oh no, it's not.
No,
That'd
sir.
be a rip. That'd be
Wait,
a rip
what?
not play on you.
We you know, all three of us would have loved to be wrestlers, but we couldn't. So for whatever reason,
Well, yeah, but what
we
is
ended
that
up on
reason?
this
You tell me what that reason is. Was it
I
physical? Did you break your neck?
No,
Did you?
it was fatherhood. Just fatherhood and being more active in my kids' lives at the time. And, I couldn't dedicate the time that I would have needed to dedicate to it. I still love it.
Well,
You know what I mean? And that's why we do what we do here. It's why we've built this brand is we love pro wrestling and we don't, it's like you said, if the first avenue you thought might be your way there isn't going to work, then there's other ways to get there. If all we ever do is interview cool people like you, man, this is exactly what we've wanted to do. We wanted to create a brand that our kids can be proud of, that we can be proud of, and that we can, rub shoulders with giants like you, man, for real.
well,
So
I appreciate that. You're really being overly nice to me. I'm not that nice a
He
guy.
does that.
I'm a dick sometimes. So,
Hey, me too, though.
But here we go. Who taught you guys?
So the only formal training
Not all
I
at
ever,
once. Just tell me one. I mean, huh?
I was never, as much as I was a lifelong wrestling fan, like I never considered it ever considered being a wrestler for some reason. I was never like
Oh, you
only
didn't
wrestling
even
I knew
pursue it.
was
You didn't pursue it.
no.
I was the same way.
I'm the only one that did.
I thought about it as a kid, but it just other interests took precedent as I got older. And then
It's not
I was
for
actually
everybody.
a Laps fan for a long time. I would say 2010s up to about 4 or 5 years ago. I didn't really watch a whole lot. And then I got really into the indie scene. I started finding out about that, local promotions around us and stuff. And it just reignited my love of it.
For me, I did a little bit of training with
This
with
reignited CM Punk. This book.
Yes.
This book, Phil said he was in between jobs when I brought that first book out, and he did the forward. Which one did he do the forward in? He did the forward in the first one. He didn't do the forward in the second one. That was Drew McIntyre. and Ted DiBiase did the second one.
Hey, speaking of a guy that went away and reinvented himself and came back, bigger than better than ever.
Oh yeah,
Drew was impressive.
So, not pursuing your dream or not following what you thought you might want to do, there's nothing wrong with that, because first of all, you have to be prepared for the worst part of your life. I mean, when you're kind of in that throne of undecision, which way do I go? How do I turn? Who do I talk to? How do I get in? How do I look? And I'm pretty brutal. And the only reason I'm brutal is because I don't see anybody that can't make it. I don't ever look at a person and go, oh, you're too tall. You're too short. You're too fat. You're too skinny. You're too this, you're bald. Oh, whoops, so am I. Wait a minute. You can make it. But no, you're gonna, there's not something, because if this is the answers I got, I would say you're a little bit small for this business, but if it's your heart and your passion, I'll teach you. But I can't, there's no guarantee. I have no crystal ball. I don't know who's going to make it, who's not, but I'll teach you. So at least that you want to learn this business, you're going to learn it. And at least you have ability. If you want to go work on indies and just do it on a weekend for fun, work 1 or 2 times a year, whatever, you can actually do that. But the thing about it is, if I said any of the other negatives, you're too small. I'm bigger than Rey Mysterio. You got me. You got me. One guy, right? You're going to tell me one guy my entire career. I mean, in my generation, which I considered like the 70s, 80s, and early 90s, my generation, it was an industry of giants. It wasn't an industry of small guys. It was an industry of giants. And even if they weren't a giant, they were pretty good sized guys. I mean, when we went through the airport, and when I was doing Skinner, I was about 240. I mean, and I was one of the smallest guys. But it wasn't like you saw the guys going through the airport and you go, I wonder what those guys do. They go, there I am. He's my favorite. That was so much fun doing that character. For the first time in my career, I wasn't Steve Keirn, and I wasn't a babyface. Now I'm a heel, and now I'm the guy out of the movie Deliverance, the one that says, hey, boy, you got a right pretty mouth.
You can tell you're having fun in that, and especially in some of the vignettes that you guys did. You can tell that you were having a lot of fun.
I was having way more fun than the camera guys. Those guys were from New York and Stanford. And when they came out, and I told them, well, we're going to do this one in a swamp. We're going to do this one in a live alligator area where they breed them and where they mate. We're going to do this one. And they're looking at me and they're going, oh, man, they were freaking out. And I took them into some really weird places, too. And I would scare them. Them camera guys were so skittish. I would actually bring little baby chameleon lizards. We have a gazillion here in Florida. And as a kid, you thump them in the face, right? With your finger, you go pop, pop, and they go, yeah, they open their mouth. And you clip them onto your ears like earrings. And I'd bring them in a little cricket cage to promos. And back then, we did our promos in soundproof booths at TV. And they'd be all lined up. And they'd say, Skinner in promo booth 2 with Jack Lanza, or Skinner over here with Bobby Heenan or whoever. And so they'd go in there and they'd have an agent in there watching over me because I had a bad reputation of saying the wrong thing sometimes. So when I put the little chameleons on my ears, I'm sitting there and the camera guys are watching, and I go, see that pretty little bird? And then one of the chameleons started wiggling. And the guy looks around the camera, he goes like this, he goes, hey, your earring's moving. I said, it's live. I took it off and I held it up. And I had a big mouthful of the black stuff, the licorice. Everybody thought it was chewing tobacco. And I go, watch this. Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, I'm going to eat you. And I dropped the lizard down my mouth. Well, I was ribbing the camera guys, but it really kind of backfired on me. This damn lizard ran halfway down my throat, and I had to cough him up with the chewing tobacco and everything. So it's kind of like, hey, this is funny. Watch this. Whenever I say that, watch, because I'm getting ready to get hurt.
Famous last
So-
word.
I got to come back to you used black licorice as chewing tobacco, and
Oh, heck yeah.
that's
yeah,
awesome.
You kidding me? I couldn't chew real tobacco. I was
No, but like
terrified.
that's such a. I would never think of that as like a. Oh, I'm going to use this as a pro. That's genius.
You know why I did that? Here's what happened. When I first got, Vince had a creative department, picked out the character. They had an art rendering of it, and I had a stupid hat on like Tugboat. It looked like I looked like Gilligan. It had the hat pulled down instead of stuck up like that. It had the hat pulled down and a camouflage or old shirt and stuff like that. So I said, "Can I change that hat? I don't like that hat. You mind if I change some of this?"
Yeah.
And so when I first started working, the northeast part of the United States is heel territory. If you go from Detroit to Philly to Boston Gardens to Madison Square Gardens to anywhere in that northeast, they're heel fans. And I'm walking out thinking I'm a heel. Watch this yet, right? I walk out there cheering me. I mean, they're cheering me in every arena. I'm working against Kerry Von Erich. Boo. I'm going, what? You guys got this all ass backwards here. So I'm trying to figure out. I mean, I'd jump up on the ropes and I'd be cussing everybody and they'd be going, yeah. And I'm going, what? So then I go, I had to the movie Deliverance is where Vince got the character, and that's what he asked me if I'd ever seen when he said, "Oh, we got a character for you. Did you ever see Deliverance?" I go, "Yeah, a million times." Anyway, but the grossest part about the guys was their mouths, their teeth.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, all haggard teeth, and then that black shit running out of their mouth and all that. So I came up with this bright idea that I ain't chewing no tobacco, because once you start something and it's good, they're gonna make you do it every night. So I came up with licorice, and I started off with a pork and bean can, spitting in that. But then Kevin Dunn, the head of TV for 1,000 years, he was freaking out because every time I spilled the licorice, it made a stain on the mat and I had to change the mat. Or my character started spitting in everybody's face, and so they were going, I fucked up the mat again. So they'd have to change the mat. So, but the fun part about the licorice is I actually turned heel on people, even in the heel parts, because I'd walk out and when they're cheering for me or whatever, I'd lean over the rail and go, and I'd spit the tobacco, which they thought was tobacco, but it's licorice on their feet or on them. And then they were booing me. So I'm going, hey, I got this. I got this program.
That's amazing.
Get a little hook in them. So I did to Jerry Jarrett. Jerry Jarrett, he was a big-time promoter, and he come and got me and Kevin Sullivan at the same time. You guys know this story? I don't want to bore you.
You're good,
Dude.
brother.
I am so captivated, right? Like I could listen to you talk for hours, man. This is great.
Well, you're not going to, because my voice quits after a while.
No, we had Kevin on.
Well,
We had Kevin on the show twice, man. But we more talked about what he thought about independent wrestling today, so we didn't hear a lot of the old stories.
Well, it's a good thing he didn't talk to me first, because he'd have had a lot of stories that he'd have told you. And I really had some bad stories about me. But Kevin and I were working in Atlanta for, Jim Barnett. That's who we were working for. Jerry Jarrett had his Tennessee territory, and he had just taken Tommy Rich, who was a huge star on Channel 17, which is the first cable networking to go out everywhere. And Jerry Jarrett wanted him. Well, Jerry Jarrett had taken him and had taken him to Tennessee, and it didn't work out. He didn't get over like he did on TBS. I mean, so Jerry Jarrett wanted to trade him back, and he came to Barnett and he says, listen, I want to trade Tommy Rich back, and Barnett loved Tommy Rich. I mean, and he made a lot of money with Tommy Rich. I love Tommy Rich too. He's a great person and a great guy and a great worker. One of the best baby faces ever. But Barnett says, I'll give you 2 guys if you give me Tommy Rich back. And so he said, fine. He came to the Omni, and me and Kevin just worked this angle on TBS where Kevin turned heel on me. We had babyface matches for the, I don't know what title, what belt it was. It could have been, I don't think it was a Georgia belt. I had that for a while in there, but I don't think that's a belt. I think it was a TV title or TV championship or some other jabroni belt that we just, had to have this thing. And so Kevin turned on me. Well, we had a match in the Omni. And we did a way before ECW match all over the building. We went all the way to the top. Kevin worked like Abdullah the Butcher, and I was right behind him. And we rolled down the stairs, and we did all kinds of crap. Anyway, when we come in the back, Jerry Jarrett come to us and said, are you guys interested in coming to Tennessee? I said, I know who you are. You're Jerry Jarrett. And he goes, yeah. I said, I don't want to go to Tennessee. And Kevin's going, well, what is the opportunity? I said, well, I don't want to go. I heard that if I go to Tennessee, you never get over Lawler or Dundee. They're sewn in there like they're weaved like a blanket. And 6 months, Dundee's the booker. The other 6 months, Lawler's the booker. And you'll never get past it. So I said, I'm just good. I'm going to stay here in Atlanta. Well, he said, well, Barnett gave me an opportunity to take 2 guys, and I chose you and Kevin. And I go, does that mean I'm getting my notice because you chose me? And he goes, no, I'm sure that he'll keep you if you want to, but I'm giving you an opportunity. So I think you'll find it's a really good opportunity. So I fell for it. That's how I went. And me and Kevin went there too. So when we got there, we didn't fit in. I mean, it was like 2 round circles trying to jam them in a square hole. It's because Kevin and I were old school NWA, and from Florida, the Carolinas, Georgia, those territories, they were all the same style, and it was serious wrestling, no BS. You were telling a story of good versus evil every night for average of 30 minutes, and you better make them feel like it's real. Then I started working with other guys besides Kevin. First guy was Wayne Ferris, Honky Tonk Man. Oh, he'd come back from the ring and say, do I owe you money? And I'd go, what? And he said, man, you beat me like I owed you money. And I said, that's not right. I said, I believe there's 2 things that you don't pull. And one's a slap in the face and the other's a chop to the chest. Don't mess with that. Just go ahead and give it to them. And some guys don't like to feel nothing.
Definitely want to talk about your book real quick because I grew up with a stepfather who was in Vietnam, and he had a few friends that never came back as prisoners of war, and that's something that I read here, that your dad was a 2-time prisoner of war. That's one of the most crazy things I think about your book is just your life is so you've been through a lot, man, and I gotta wonder, did that affect you a lot as a kid not having your dad there, or do you think it made you suffer because of it, or do you feel like you lost something because of it?
Here's the deal. I'm a Christian. I believe in Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior. I've got 2 kids. I've got a family. My wife and I have been married 44 years.
Congratulations.
That all came about as God's work. I used to say when I was younger, I grew up without a dad. The whole time I grew up, when I first told me my dad was shot down on July 24th, 1965, my dad was shot down with the first SAM missile. They came to the house in Tampa and they pulled me by the arm, a colonel down the hallway, and he set me down on my bed and he said, your dad died today. He was shot down with a SAM missile that exploded his F4. You're the man of the family. And I started crying. And he looked at me and shook me by the arm a little bit. And he said, son, your dad wouldn't be proud of you. You're the man of the family now. Dry up those tears. And from now on, you're the man. At 13 years old, I quit all sports. I was in junior high, played basketball and football. I quit all sports. I got a job, busboy at the officers club on the base, and rode my bicycle out there to help support my family. And my family didn't need it. My dad was getting paid as he was doing service, but my whole life was designed around, I became a man of my family at 13 years old. And even when my dad came home, after I'm 21 and I'm a pro wrestler, and me and my dad were total strangers. And I lost that opportunity. And I told my dad it wasn't his fault, but at the same time, I don't know him. He's a man. He's somebody totally different than me, doesn't know anything about me, had nothing to do with my upbringing and all of that through the hardest time of making decisions, which I messed up a lot of times. But I kind of like started gravitating towards Eddie Graham early in my life. And I put him up on the pedestal and I put my dad down. And what I did, when Eddie Graham committed suicide, I threw him out the window. My dad went through 7.5 years of torture in Vietnam. At 19 years old, a POW in Germany shot down out of a B-17, a co-pilot then. He was such a man that if I'm going to be even walking his steps or replacing him while he's gone, I got to step up the program. When my sister got married, I wore my dad's shoes and gave my sister away. And I really felt that. But all that time, I never gave credit to Jesus Christ as my Savior. It wasn't until I was 50 when I really fell into the feeling that, all my life I've been living a lie. I've been trying to tell people wrestling's real. I've been, telling my wife I've never messed around. I never did. Tell my mother I never did any drugs. At 50 years old, I called my mother and said, Mom, I lied to you for a long time. I'm not doing it anymore. And she goes, what do you mean? I said, I told you I never did any drugs. I smoked pot. I've done cocaine. I've done steroids. I've done pain pills. I've done everything I do for my industry to whatever it is. But I don't have any habits. It's not sticking. And all that time I was riding thinking, I'm doing this all on my own, but Jesus was carrying me. Brought me through so many times. I almost died from a blade job one time, bled almost to death in the hospital in Nashville. They said they were losing me 3 times. I never gave credit to God and Jesus the whole time. Now I've got 5 of the most beautiful grandchildren. I've got 2 amazing children, my son and my daughter. Both are very successful people, have, my grandkids. And we live within 3 miles in a circle right here in Tampa. I'm so blessed to be able to do the things as a dad that I didn't get a chance to do. I missed a lot of birthdays. I missed all the holidays. I was never home for Thanksgiving. The only holiday I was home was for New Year's Eve or Christmas Day. And that was dependent on the territory. Some of them greedy promoters with deep pockets and short fingers would run Christmas Day. So that's my job. I had to do it. But I have a total difference in my life. Am I perfect? Not even close. I'm on my knees in the morning and at night. And I'm begging for forgiveness. And I'm also thanking him for everything that's ever happened to me and the things he's doing now. I had cancer last year out of nowhere. A doctor looks in my mouth to check my throat. And she goes, oh, you got cancer. What? Had radiation, cured it, cancer free. This year, wow. I have a tooth right now that's an implant from the cancer radiation in my throat. They won't pull it and they won't unscrew it, but it's driving me crazy. And I have to go through hyperbaric, hyperbolic, whatever, oxygen chamber. Every day I'm in that thing for 2 hours at a time. Then they're going to take this tooth out. And so my life is not going to, because I'm a Christian and because I have such a strong faith, it's not going to be an easy ride, but it had never been an easy ride. That what I see is the importance in my life is being the greatest big daddy, which is who I am. I'm not grandpa. I'm not Gramps. I'm not, some gimmick name. I am a gimmick name. I shouldn't say that. I'm Big Daddy. And all my 5 grandkids, they know about Jesus. They know about so many things that I teach them. Sometimes it's wrestling ribs and stuff, but most of the time I'm focused in my life. The last part of my life, I'm in my sunset time. I'm not middle-aged. I'm 72. I'm going to be 73 next month.
Wow.
Kevin Sullivan was one of my best friends. They're dropping like flies all around me. Every day I'm afraid to even go on the internet and see who died that day, because if they're probably personally related to me somehow. Right. Brian Blair's mom just died. Something's happening. I just saw somebody drop out.
Yeah. I'm still here. My camera died.
Okay. I might have to plug my phone in. I didn't mean to talk so much, but
you're all right.
Yeah,
we're here to listen to you. They hear us talk all the time, so you're much more interesting than all of us combined.
I always proclaim my faith, so this is not something new. I always proclaim my faith, and the reason I do is because I read the Bible every day, and I've read it 24 times through. I'm on my 25th session of the Bible, and in the Bible, in Matthew and Luke, it says, "I'll acknowledge me publicly, and I'll acknowledge you before my Father." So I feel I'm obligated to tell people, and I don't care. I get persecuted for righteousness, but I don't care. I feel like it's my opportunity to share a platform, then I share it. I mean,
sure.
I speak about religion in my book, and in my second book, I talk all about how I kind of transformed. And, even my friends like the Nasty Boys, they've heard me speak at several funerals now. Knobs comes up and says, "When the hell did you get so religious?" He said, "You were never religious. You were really a bad person." I've just changed. I've changed. That's just me. And it's like the things I have trouble with in my walk is getting along with people in society. And when I get out here in the traffic, I'm dangerous. I mean, somebody flips me off because I honked when they didn't leave at the light. I mean, I get irritated. And one of the hardest things to do is love everybody. The harder I try, I always find somebody I just can't stand. I mean,
Oh man, Steve, I gotta say, man, I'm waiting for your second book to get here, man. But your first book, I think, is an amazing read. I think anybody who's a fan of your generation of wrestling should pick up both of these books. Like I said, my second one's on the way, but
that's the back.
Okay, you and the Doink. You got to give us a quick Doink story, man. How did you get to fill the role of Doink? Just because Matt Bourne was the original Doink, right?
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna try to make it quick so the battery goes. WCW was stealing us down there with offering contract. All my friends were bailing left and right. Skinner was doing jobs. I mean, they weren't doing anything with me, and that's okay. That's somebody's got to be just one of those guys on the card. And so, but everybody on those cards were main events in territories all around the country, from first match to last match. And so I started seeing the handwriting on the wall, and I'm kind of the Lon Chaney Jr. of wrestling. If this face ain't working, I can change it. I mean, simple as this. I could grow a beard. I can dye my hair. I can do whatever. But Skinner wasn't doing too good. And Eric Bischoff hadn't called me to come down there. So, I went to Vince and I said, I got an idea. I said, I can hide under the ring and I can be under there all day if you want me to. I'm good at waiting. I'm a professional waiter. So I said, if you dress me up like Doink, I can be an identical to Matt Bourne. He's left-handed, I'm right-handed, but I can work just like Matt because we're both same school. So, okay. So he goes, I'll put that in my computer. We didn't even have computers back then, I don't think. That's just what Vince said. Vince blew me off all the time because I come up with ideas. So at WrestleMania 9, I'm not working, but I'm at Caesar's Palace with my family, and I get a call, and Vince says, "Can you come up to my room? I gotta talk to you about something." I thought he's gonna fire me, right? So I go, "Uh-oh, I guess we're getting a U-Haul." No, whatever. So I go down. I go up to talk to him, And he says, I'm going to go for that idea you had. Well, I had a lot of ideas, so I didn't want to volunteer the wrong one. So I'm going, oh, yeah? So which one is it? He says, tomorrow morning before WrestleMania, I want you to show up 3 hours early. I'm going to shave that beard off. We're going to make you Doink and put you under the ring before the show starts. I said, cool.
Wow.
What a curse that was.
How long were you under there?
What a mistake I made. I'm bragging. I'm patting my back like Barry Horowitz. Yay! All right, Steve, boy, you just moved up the ladder again. It took me an hour to paint my face. I had to snap snaps on my crotch wearing that stupid outfit. I had to do the dumbest crap in the ring just to emulate a clown. And here is the kicker out of all of that. At the very end, and I'm out of the wrestling business, people say, oh, so you're retired. What'd you do? Well, I was a professional wrestler. Oh, who are you? I was Steve Keirn. Never heard of him. I was Gator Keirn. Never heard of him. I was one of the fabulous ones. Never heard of him. I was Skinner. Never heard of him. I was Doink the Clown. I know you. 44 years in my industry, and people can only associate me with a Doink the Clown. It was like a kick, but it was like I ribbed myself. And what a rib. It was a good one because I can't stand the character. And then when Matt got busted for smoking marijuana, and I think Chief Jay Strongbow caught him, they go, okay, well, we're down to just you now. And I'm going, oh, man. I gotta be the only Doink. I mean, I was cool with hanging out under the ring. Oh, shut that down. Anyway, so I was the one that came up with it. And funny story is when we were in the dressing room at the very beginning, we were so identical that Matt played cards. I don't play cards. I'm a major loser. I don't gamble on nothing. I can't win nothing. So I don't gamble. But so Matt would be playing cards, and he'd get up to go to the bathroom. And then I'd be in the bathroom or somewhere, and he'd come and get me, and he'd say, go in there and play my hand. But don't say anything so they don't know it's you. And I'd go sit down, and I'd pick up Matt's cigarette with my left hand like I was going to smoke, but I never put it in my mouth. And then I'd play Matt's hand, right? But I'd never say nothing. And I go, and I act like I had to go back, put the cigarette down, I'd get up, I'd go out the opposite way, right? And when I go out the opposite way, Matt would come in from that way over there and sit right back down. And there'd be the guys who were playing cards and the guys in the dressing room were flipping out. When I first came out from under the ring, nobody knew it was me in the dressing room. The Nasty Boys were freaking out. Who's missing? Who's missing? They're looking all around the dressing room. Who's missing? Who is that? Nobody put it together that it was Skinner. The night after WrestleMania, I got on the elevator with Stu Hart, right? Brett's dad. And when I knew him a long time. So anyway, now I don't have a beard. And he's looking at me. He goes, hey, did you go to the show today? I said, oh, yeah, I did. And he goes, wow, wasn't it a good one? I go, I didn't see a whole lot. And he goes, oh, yeah. And he says, I said, do you not know who I am? And he goes, no, I don't think we've met. I'm Stu Hart. I go, I'm Steve Keirn. And he freaked out. I mean, just the beard being gone. What you do to your beard? What happened to your beard? I goes, I was that second Doink.
Oh, you poor thing.
Steve, before your phone dies, man, we're going to wrap this up. But we do have one question that we ask every single person that's on the show, especially if they're a dad. Mike, you want to hit him with the question?
Yeah, absolutely. Us dads, being, very budget-minded, individuals, we like to kind of gauge our guests and ask them, what do you keep your thermostat set to?
78.
Wow. You
And
hot-blooded
Florida, too.
Floridians, man. Whew.
Man, I'm a reptile. You guys don't know.
Yeah.
Hey, we didn't even get into my sporting goods in my life. I was a shark slayer. When Jaws came out, I became Quinn. I was shark killer of Tampa Bay. And then when the alligator thing came out, I was the first one. I killed 15 alligators. I held a state record for a long time in the largest kills. I hired a poacher, and me and him went out. He taught me to kill alligators. Mike Graham And I got so into the shark things for so long because of that movie Jaws was so popular that we started getting a little crazy with trying to go underwater and chum them up and then bang sticking them. That's not a good idea because the minute a bang stick, if I tilt this up, if you can see that that line right under the alligator, that's a bang stick. That's what I kill them with. But you can use that underwater too. But as soon as you hit a shark underwater with a bang stick, it blows your mask off. That's a rush. All you're thinking you're cool, and you go boom. Now you're blind, and you just pissed off a shark. So we had to stop that. And then that's when I got into the alligator thing, and I picked up a new habit that was. I mean, it was just 2 years ago. I said to my wife Terry, I said, I think I'm gonna kill some alligators again. And my wife goes, hold it.
Pump the brakes.
What are you thinking? Remember, you were younger then, and you remember the motto: slow hands, no hands. I mean, in Florida, we don't hunt like you see swamp people. We hunt at night. You're not allowed to hunt in the daytime. We're not allowed to use a gun. You have to get close enough to them to bang stick them, and then you got to jump in the water and get them out because they're not tied to nothing like on swamp people. So it was a real experience, and it was such a rush for me because I had to do it. I had the whole month of September, and I had 15 tags, and I would drive. I wasn't working, and I would drive all the way over to Lake Okeechobee, and I had the northwest section of Lake Okeechobee on my zone that I could hunt. And this guy that I hunted with, he was about to go to prison for smuggling marijuana into West Palm or something, but he was an alligator poacher, and he knew all about it. Boy, I had the greatest time, but it was the very first harvest. And when my wife and I said I was going to get it, she goes, it's the same thing I tell you at the light. This is what she tells me at a light when I honk the horn and somebody flips me off, and I say, I'm gonna go up to the light. I'm gonna get out and go ask them what that was all about. And she goes, look in the rear view mirror. And I go, why? Is there somebody behind me? And she goes, no, you're an old man. You get out of your truck and go up there, and some high school kid's going to get out and kick your ass. She said, you go out hunting alligators at night, and the first one you jump on, you misjudged him, and he's still alive, and he's going to eat your ass. So she pulled the plug on that for sure.
Yep. Mama ain't having it.
Well, Steve, I gotta thank you, man. Like I said, we gotta recommend check this book out, guys. Go online and grab yourself.
You gotta get the second one too,
and get the second one as well. Mine's on the way.
You're gonna like the second one, and I'm gonna tell you why. Is I explain a lot of the business in the second one as the guy that got stuck running the business. The first one, it's more about territorial days and stuff. The second one, I go through Skinner, Doink. I go through being an agent. I go through running FCW and the developmental and the whole deal. And I tell what the differences of what the business is from what people really know about it.
Sure.
And before we go, I want to plug this book from my writer too, Ian Douglas. This is the Bohemian Rhapsody. That's Kevin Sullivan on there and Dusty. Oh, yeah. They're not good artists, but that's who they are. And I wrote the foreword in this book is because I spent a lot of time wrestling in the Bahamas. And the Bahamas has quite a history, but nobody really knows it unless you grew up in the Bahamas. So it's a really interesting book for people that like to know about wrestling in other places like Puerto Rico or wherever.
Sure,
so,
yeah.
But I want to thank you guys for having me on and being patient with me. I mean, sometimes I get carried away when I'm talking, but I get excited about my life and my business. And I definitely get excited about talking about Jesus. And you guys gave me this opportunity tonight, and I appreciate it really from the bottom of my heart. And that's not trying to be a baby-faced, sappy guy. That's being straightforward with you guys. I respect anybody that likes my business or walks through the door of my business. I don't look at people and say, oh, those guys are marks or whatever. I don't think that well, you are, but there's a lots of other people that are my really close friends that are, and they don't want me to, it's not name calling or anything, but there's these really rich guys in Fort Lauderdale, and they've got a thing called Smart Marks.
Mm-hmm.
It's a club, and they're like major wealthy guy. The one head guy, he owned MMA for a long time, but he has all the belts that I sold every belt. I sold everything I ever had that had anything to do with wrestling. I mean, to me, I have no pictures of me wrestling in this house. There's some in the garage and stuff, some posters I just couldn't get rid of, but I put everything in boxes. And if you look at my book, I'm going to tell you a little thing right now that goes with the book. If you look through my book, you're just going to find some pictures that I've signed, but I signed them. This is what happened. Mike Graham's daughter came to me and she said, I'm like her uncle. And I'm not really her uncle. Don't write that down. But I'm like her uncle. But she said, Steve, what do I do with all my dad's memorabilia, the books, the programs, the pictures, and Eddie, my grandpa? What do I do with all that? And I said, Nicole, did they sign anything? And she went back through it a couple of days later. No, they didn't sign anything. Man, a light bulb went off on top of my head. If I died, I have all this stuff, wrestling history in my house and boxes outside, but nothing signed. So they're just a copy of something. So I went through, I signed every picture, I signed every magazine, and I collected magazines from 1972 all the way up until I retired. So I signed all of that stuff, and I've told all my friends, Ron Simmons, the last Comic Con I was on, sat with him and said, Ron, sign your stuff. He went home and signed his FSU stuff. He signed his, but logically, we don't sign our own things.
Right.
But now that I'm spreading it with my friends, they get it. We die, that's just stuff.
That makes so much sense.
But if we die and we signed it and there's any value for memorabilia to a collector or whatever, at least it's got a signature on it. So
do you have any shows you're doing coming up soon?
Yeah, I'm going to be in Pulaski, Tennessee on the 31st of August. It's about 70 miles south of Nashville. I'm doing a guy's comic store, and it's called Kayfabe Cave. The guy's name is Todd Camp, and he went to Stan personally, drove up to where Stan lives because Stan doesn't travel, and he got all his Fabulous Ones pictures signed for Stan, and then I'm going to come in and sign the other half of that, and then plus do a personal appearance.
Wow.
That's awesome.
And then I'll be in Toronto September 20th or 21st.
Okay.
At a Comic Con up there.
Absolutely. We appreciate you, man. Yeah. Absolutely.
Well, thanks. You guys are very respectful. It was easy. It was a piece of cake, man. Great show.
Hey, thank
you. I don't know
brother.
about great show. I'm in the show, so I don't want to say it was a great show. It was an okay show.
Hey, I enjoyed the heck out of it, man. You're obviously, a wealth of knowledge, and we could probably do this 5 or 6 more times and still not hear every story you got to tell. So I'm here for any time that we get with you.
Well, if you get the opportunity and read the books, it really helps too, because
I'm definitely gonna be doing that.
Ian did such a great job. Ian Douglas is such a great writer. He did Brian Blair's book, Hornswoggle, Bugsy McGraw, Dan Severn. He's done quite a few books. And when everybody was telling me write a book, I go, who's going to read my book? I was just one of the soldiers, man. I'm just a soldier, and I'm happy that I got the opportunity to do what I did. But I'm not like a Hulkster or a Ric Flair or any of those guys. But I'm twice as happy as all of them. But at the same time, I realize like what The Rock says, know your role. I know my role. My role was to go out there and do the best I could to support whoever's on top and not do their finishing move for a high spot.
Yeah.
Oh, man, I'm sorry. You were going to do that at the end? Oh, man, too bad. I got so cocky when I was younger. You guys would have had fun. I'm a fun guy. I'd walk out there and I'd have a match, and the biggest compliment you can get paid is when you walk back through the dressing room door and your peers are standing up and they're clapping or they're going, wow, man, that was freaking awesome. And I got so cocky in Florida here when I had a really strong run. I'd walk in the dressing room, and if Dusty was on after me or whatever, I'd go, follow that, fatso. I loved him like an older brother. Dusty was like my older brother. We were so friends for 45 years before he passed, but he was an older brother. And if you don't have older brothers, I don't, but an older brother can't.
Didn't you get to face him at Madison Square Garden? Did I hear that right?
I didn't wrestle. No, I didn't wrestle him. They brought us both up there twice.
Okay.
Vince Sr. brought us up there. Oh. That's when he was whining and dining me about giving me the job Bobby Backlund ended up with.
Okay.
I mean, I was supposed to be that guy, but, I'm not. I didn't want to go to New York. I didn't want to go. When you work territories in the South, you can pull off the interstate and there's a 7-Eleven or something there. And you can get out of your car and walk in and say, oh, excuse me, ma'am, do you know where the Coliseum's at? Why, sure, honey, just go up here 2 more hours. Yeah. Try that going to Madison Square Gardens. Right. I asked a guy at a toll booth, I said, hey, man, can you give me directions to Madison Square Gardens? And the guy looks at me and goes, get a map. What? Move.
None of that Southern hospitality up there.
And we didn't have GPSs back then either.
Right,
we didn't have these little phones either.
No.
Well, thanks, guys.
Hey, thank you, man. This has been
good job
amazing.
Being great dads. It's very important. There's so many kids that don't have dads, and so many kids that have bad dads. It's a most important thing you can do in your life if you commit and you have children is do the best you can raise them the best you can, and it's not easy right now. It's not the same as when my kids were getting raised. I mean, my kids, I didn't spare the rod with my kids. If they got out of line, I popped them, but I never gave them a warning. I never go, well, you do that one more time, Corey, and I'm going to give you one of these. And that's it. I'd surprise him. I'd surprise him when he did something. I'd just smack him in the back of the head or punch him in the arm. And he goes, Dad, how come everybody else's dad says you do that one more time and you're going to get it? And you don't give me a warning. I go, you don't get a warning. That doesn't work. They're really bad kids. You're going to be a good kid. My son's a doctor at the VA.
That's a great kid.
Yeah, he is. He's a great man too. But my daughter's awesome. Just as I wanted a little girl first, and I got a little girl first because I always heard, "Daddy's girl, Mama's boy."
Yep.
So,
yeah, absolutely. That's it.
My wife has a new one. When they grow up, it goes, when you have a daughter, you have a daughter for life. When you have a son, you have a son till he takes a wife.
You're not wrong.
No,
I always heard it till he finds his wiener, but tomato.
That's right.
Yeah. Hey, thank
God
you so
y'all.
much. That means a lot to us, man. That's something we take very great pride in, is being dads. Obviously, our whole podcast is called the Dad World Order Podcast, and it's not just a gimmick.
Within a blink of an eye, they're going to be gone.
Yep.
Yeah.
They'll still be your kids, but they're going to be gone. I mean, my grandchildren are growing like weeds right now. I'm at all kinds of sporting events with them, and every birthday, my grandson's getting ready to turn 6, my youngest. I can't believe our genetic genes. If I could show you guys the picture I'm talking about right now, what my grandson looks like and what I look like at his age. I lived on Okinawa. My dad was stationed on Okinawa. I had a military haircut. My son-in-law is ex-Navy, and so my grandson has a military haircut. Oh, yeah. And so he's white-walled and got a little – I had that same haircut, but we look identical. Identical.
Crazy. As always, we've been the DWO Podcast. I am Big Rig Eric Maffey. He is Mr. Magnificent Mike Martin. He is the Wrestling T-shirt guy Cephas, and he is the one and only Steve Keirn. Thank you so much. Check us out on all the socials at DW_podcast, Facebook at the DWO Podcast, TikTok at DW_pod. Get that dad merch, Pro Wrestling Tees, TeePublic, like, follow, subscribe, listen, all that good stuff. Make sure you check out Steve's books. They're awesome. I cannot wait to get my own copies. I know Cephas. I'm probably just going to end up borrowing them from you or buy my own copy unless you,
You
don't
support
let me
that
borrow
man
one.
and buy your own copy.
Well, you
I'll
buy
buy
your
mine.
own. If you buy your own copies, just send them to me and I'll sign them and I'll send them back to you.
Well, hell yeah. That's exactly what I'm going to do then. Thank you so much, Steve.
I'll be more than happy to.
All right. Awesome. Well, until next time, Top Dads out.
That's World Order.